Hey everyone, this is Dave from the podcast. I just wanted to jump on here and give you an update on what some things that are happening behind the scenes for me, apart from the podcast, personally and with my family, and to give you an update and to share with you as a listener. And I just really appreciate you hitting play on this episode. I wanted to say thank you. You'll notice there's no music, there's no sound effects. It's just you and I. And the reason for that is I wanted to come on and say thank you to some of the most amazing people in the world, whether it is past guests, listeners of the show, friends of the podcast. In the last few days, my family and I have gone through some really tough and dark days. I lost my father many years ago when my kids were little. And my mom struggled through all that, and we took her in, and she lived with us for a while, watched her kids while my wife and I both worked. And as our kids got older and grew up, she's been there. And for the last 16 years, she's been married to a great guy, and the two of them have done life together, supported each other, and grown old together. And my mom just recently had shingles, and she was also on medication for arthritis, and the arthritis medication reduced her ability to fight off the shingles virus, which then moved into her spinal column and then into her brain. And she complained recently about some brain fog and some dizziness, but we didn't think much of it because it's treatable. It's something that we can work through. And she's a healthy woman and very spry and, doesn't really stop for much. And she fell at home, and her husband found her and in the washroom, called the fire department ambulance. They came, took her to the hospital. She was actually not breathing when she arrived at the hospital. And for 10 days, she was on life support. And my wife, my sister, myself, and her husband, Leroy, we visited her on regular rotation and spent as much time with her as we could based on family commitments and life and jobs and all of that. But in the last few days of my mom's time with us, my sister, my wife, and I did shifts so that my mom was never alone in the room. And I had the privilege and honor of being the last one in the room with her. And on Saturday morning, my days are just a mess. Saturday morning on December 2nd, my mom was really struggling with breathing. She was struggling with, just trying to get her next breath. And I was there with her. Again, she was never conscious. We were never able to communicate with her. Once I had a moment with her eyes open where I think she looked at me, but I'm holding out hope that she saw me, but no way to know whether or not she did. But at about 6:20 in the morning on December 2nd, about 6:10 Saturday morning, my mom was really sweaty and clammy and breathing really off and on. And I asked the nurse to clean her up a bit because she looked very uncomfortable. So the nurse asked me to step outside, and they changed her gown. They gave her a quick cleaning and tried to freshen her up a little bit. They invited me back in the room, and as I came back in the room, I went to her bedside near the machines and monitors, which were shut off at this point, and there was just one little one, kind of keeping track of her heart rate. And I saw one big breath, and then her chest didn't rise again. I looked to my left, and the heart monitor that was, fluctuating, watching her heart rate was at 0. Then I looked to the nurse that was assisting my mom under the bed, and she was kind of coming back up. And I just said, "Can you kind of let me know what's happening here?" And the look of regret and caution, she reached over and said, "I'm so sorry." And in that moment, I was there for the last breath for my mom. And through all of this, we've been posting to social media, letting friends and family know. And if you've been following me on Facebook or my mom or whatever, you would see the posts. And I want to thank you, you know who you are, who have been there for me, reaching out, leaving words of encouragement. And I would love to say that I've been able to respond to everything, but I haven't been able to respond to everything. Just the sheer number of responses that have come from you. Again, past guests, fellow podcasters, people in the community, listeners of the show, leaving me loving, supportive messages from the time my mother went in the hospital to that moment and beyond. You have been there for me. And if you've ever wondered if starting a podcast can bring value to you, I would tell you strongly to do one, because I was getting messages from Australia, England, Mexico, and through Europe and the United States, on all my different platforms, people reaching out, unsure of what they could do, people leaving me SpeakPipe messages, just some of the best people in the world. And I was able to review some of these, having a break from being in the room, sitting with my wife or my sister, and reading off your messages to my family and saying, I had one interaction with you as a guest, one interaction with you as a podcast follower or listener or fellow podcaster, and reading your message to my family. And the look of awe and astonishment that even in a single interaction with you, or as you as a listener listening to the show, that you would think to take time to reach out to me and to my family and allow me the honor and privilege of sharing your message to my family and sharing them with my mom, even though she never could respond. She couldn't really open her eyes, but I could read them to her in the hospital room. Your message to her and to the family. It's been beautiful, and it has carried me. It has carried my family, my wife, my kids, my sister and her kids, my mom's husband, through all of this. And I want to thank you. Again, there's no music here. There's no special effects. There's nothing, just you and me. I want to just thank you. And if this is your first time hearing of this, I want to let you know that you pressing play on this episode means a lot to me, and on every thing that we put out into the world, because we're trying to change how we treat each other and how we show up for each other in this world. I want to be that for you. And you have been that for me as part of this community. So thank you. I would love for you to continue supporting the podcast and the amazing people who have been guests or fellow podcasters, the community here. You have been amazing for me. You have been amazing to all of us who you don't know behind the scenes, the family, the friends. And hearing your feedback and your thoughts has carried us through this incredibly hard 10, 11, 12 days. So thank you. And I appreciate you. I love you all. You're more than just a listener. You're more than just a guest. You're more than just a podcast friend. You're my family. And it feels really weird to say that, because many of you I've never met in person. Many of you I never will. but we built something together as podcaster, as listener, as podcaster and guest, as podcaster and fellow podcaster. We have this bond that brings us to the microphone, helps us to hit record and do our best to put something out into the world that has meaning and impact. And you and your participation in this podcast, even if it's simply pressing play, means so much for so many. And I want to thank you to everyone that has reached out and offered up your kind words, your thoughts, your love. On behalf of my mom, Sharon, my family, which is now my sister and I, to my dad that has gone long before. Thank you for honoring our family. Thank you for honoring my mom's memory. And you didn't have to leave a message, but you did. And every one of your messages made me cry. Every one of your messages brought me joy and extreme thankfulness for you. Thank you. And Mom, I don't know if you can hear, Mom, if you can hear podcasting wherever you are, I hope this brings you joy. Thank you for being here. Love you. Take care.